This match is now officially a Judy Bagwell on a forklift match.
I can see my fantasy, I'm so consumed in bed. What I see takes over me, I'm blind beyond repair.
Holy shit. I didn't think we'd ever be sitting here.
No, you didn't think we would be sitting here, but here we are.
No, I'm kind of freaking the fuck out right now.
It's okay. It's okay. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. Listen, everybody's human. Everybody's human.
Yes.
And we're talking to somebody who's an idol to us as our from our childhood and until now. Somebody who has been through a lot, somebody who has rebirthed themselves in multiple ways. But why don't we let him talk about himself? So let's bring him in right now. The one, the only, Marcus Buff Bagwell.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Hello,
sir.
My
God. It is an honor and a privilege to be talking to you. How are you tonight?
Man, I'm doing great, doing fantastic. Just getting excited about, life again, man. Just a lot of good stuff happening in my life right now. And, I needed a reset button in a couple different areas. And it was kind of forced a little bit at first, but now I'm taking it on wide open. So I'm really, really liking everything and the change. The change isn't as dramatic as I thought. So I'm really very happy where I'm at right now.
Oh, that's so good to hear. Because, he knows this. I struggled with that stuff too. Like, I'm 4 years clean from it all now. But, him having his daughter and everything was, the kick in the ass for me to, get clean and to stop doing all of those things as well and to appreciate and love life. And honestly, every time I saw you on Twitter and just all the stories with DDP, who I love DDP as well, he's my all-time favorite. It was if this guy can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
So you were a big inspiration for me from when I was still to this day going through it.
Well, man, it was really, my walk with everything was really judged by, with WCW. I use WCW as that was my leash, and what a wonderful leash to have. Ted Turner, World Championship Wrestling, 20 years old, making 150 grand a year as a 20-year-old. Very grateful, very wonderful, very successful run at this thing out of the gate. And to have that leash, though, was a very wonderful thing to have because, you just couldn't, no matter what you ventured off into, there wasn't too many demons because no matter what, that leash kept you accountable. And so, with injuries and stuff, there was demons always floating around our business, and deaths and overdoses and heart attacks and drug use was all, and it's in life, but it really surrounded pro wrestling a lot. And with that said, I was all around it. So, and as I got older and broke my neck and things like that, it was the injuries, started stacking up, and then the pills started stacking up. But again, I had that great leash called World Championship Wrestling that kept me in line. So, so I really was very good up till, the WWF and WCW merge. And I got done so wrong out of that, man.
Agreed.
Just, Vince buying the company and me being one of the main players at the time he bought it. I mean, how many guys would switch seats with me knowing that Buff Bagwell, 30 years old, in great shape, ready to go, and that given this opportunity, everybody knew I was going to be one of the biggest stars, and but what happened was I was main event one week and fired the next, and to this day I still don't know why. So when that enters your mind as Marcus Buff Bagwell, it was really depressing, and the leash was gone, and there I went. So after that, when that leash was cut off, rehab started happening, because people wanted me to go to rehab. They wanted me to go to get cleaned up and to get all my drugs were prescription drugs, Xanax, Somas, I mean, I dabbled in other things, but nothing serious at all. Just try things and didn't like them. But prescription drugs was what I did. And I just at the end of it there, I had a pill for everything. It was a pill for working out. It was a pill to go to bed. It was a pill to go out and party. It was a pill to, it was just a pill for every situation. And it just got out of control. And I did about 4 rehabs during that journey of the next 15 years. I did like 4 rehabs. And then they just didn't do any good because I didn't take them all seriously. And I wasn't doing it for myself. So when I finally took the bull by the horns, man, and I said, I want to do it for me, that was when Dallas Page and my niece stepped in and kind of did the intervention on me. It's basically said that they're out of my lives if I don't go to rehab. And this would have been, last year, August of, would have been September. No, it would have been August 27th of last year. And so they gave me an ultimatum. And I took it. I said, yes, I'll do it. So I went to Black Bear for 30 days, a place called Black Bear Recovery in North Georgia mountains. And then where I tried differently this time was I really focused in on the aftercare. Mm-hmm. The aftercare part of this is really what I learned this time, how important it really was. The other 4 attempts with drugs at rehabs was 30 days. And the whole 30 days, I was dreading it because I needed to get back to work. I needed to make money. I never really dove into really what the problem was. I just thought if I stayed clean for 30 days, and a lot of people think this, so they need to listen to me. I really thought if I stayed clean for 30 days, that on day 31, you were good to go. I really did. Because you pay your dues, you bust your butt for 30 days, and you're good to go. And that's the least of the truth. I mean, you've got to go beyond 30 days to have any kind of success in recovery. And so this time I knew it was going to be different because A, I told them I'd do 90 days. B, I didn't have to worry about my finances because Dallas was keeping up, with all my stuff. So I didn't get hurt when I came out, and all my cameos and all that stuff. I didn't miss anything, and it didn't hurt me. It didn't hurt me bad to miss it. So I really focused on me, and here I am now, starting one day at a time. And you still got to take it one day at a time. But here I am now, 6 months clean and sober, and I don't think I've ever been 6 months clean and sober in my entire life.
Well, we're glad you're here. And you stated something though. So your niece and Dallas, they were the ones that prompted you. Basically said, "Hey, this is it, or we're done." And that's not to use the scenario, but that's what I did to him. He was unbearable to an extent when it was going down.
A real dick.
Pushed him to that point. So we're very happy that somebody was there to do that for you. And unfortunately, sometimes that news has to come from the hardest news has to come from the people that you love the most. Yeah. To be able to receive that kind of thing. But something that you've talked about in regards to age and everything like that, I don't think people realize that in the realm of professional wrestling, you are still very young compared to a lot of the guys. Yeah. It's like, hey, he's been off TV for 23 years or something. But when you look at it, you're like, I believe you're 53, correct?
53.
That's nothing in this world. You had a guy main eventing WrestleMania 2 years ago that was older than you, and so to see that you have lived
diving off balconies at 63.
Yeah,
like it's
you've got Sting coming. Coming back from it. I think that's what gets lost so much is that the ride of Buff was this short 10-year span that everybody sees, the visible ride. Now, like we're sycophants for a less of a better reason. So we've been able to watch your career, and with social media, it's been nice to be able to like keep up with these people that you watched for a long time and see what they're going through. And what you've been through recently, I think of you as like a phoenix of professional wrestling. You have kind of burned out and came back so many times, and to see this rebirth is just awesome for us. And I wanted to say we're proud of you. That might not mean anything up from it, but we're super proud of you.
It means a lot, bro. It means so much. And again, this time, like you said, it's just, the 11-year run I had was so impactful and so great. But I knew even then, by getting in this business, I knew my age was going to come back and help me in the end. And I didn't know how, I didn't know why. I just knew that either at the beginning or at the end of my career, my age was going to help me. And at the beginning, it was just a good thing. But at the end is where my age is going to help me, which is now. I mean, you got to think about this, bro. Sting and every top guy that I know is 12 years, at least 12 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sting is 12 years, Nash 12. These guys are in better shape than me, but still they're 12 years older than me. So that tells me I've got a chance as well. And these are my idols, you know, Kevin Nash and Sting and Luger. These guys are my guys. They were my team, you know. And Luger stays busy with signings, and he's so impactful and so important in my life. And you know, Sting too as well, just to be such a great guy to help me in the beginning, and he's been there for me all along the way as well. And you know, Nash too, we stay in touch. And it's just knowing that my age is going to play a part, and knowing that 53 years old in the world of pro wrestling is really young still.
Mm-hmm. It's very young. Like, you could make a comeback tomorrow, and no, like, I'll tell you this. It was pre-pandemic. It was like 3 years ago when it was about to be WrestleMania down in Florida, and you were scheduled to have a match with Scott Steiner that weekend. I remember seeing that because me, him, and our other buddy, we were talking the whole time about, let's drive down to Florida and watch Buff. We weren't going down there for WrestleMania. We were going down there to see Buff Bagwell. We were going down there to hopefully just get 5 minutes of your time. Just be like, all right, we spent $600 to get down here. Maybe he'll give us 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely, I would have.
No, but like, you've been so impactful, like, throughout your career. Like, for the love of God, our podcast is named after a match that you're in.
Really?
The only, yeah, it's named after you. Our podcast is named after you, Chris
I love it.
Canyon, your mother, Judy, fucking David Arquette, just everyone from that 2001 era of WCW. Like, we know some people look back at it as this was bad, but I can't tell you that there's nothing more fun to go back and watch than
It was the best.
2001 WCW.
Rick Steiner's who came up with that whole deal. He presented it to me, and I said, Rick, I don't know, man. You know, Scotty was really, really anti-girl, anti-woman, because of the business. The business was anti-woman. It was not. WCW didn't have one girls wrestling match on Nitro or Thunder or nothing, because wrestling girls, for whatever reason, they hadn't figured it out yet. And I remember several times being at shows and trying to get girls to understand it and everything, and it just not working. The women of wrestling really did not break through and learn how to do the moves correctly. And then I remember seeing one of the first girls ever that really could do it, and it was a girl named Mickie James.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and she was one of my favorites. She went on the show. She went on something. I saw her at a show, and I was like really blown away on how great she was. She really was, you know, taking bumps like a guy and throwing clotheslines and throwing punches, and she had it all down. She didn't look like a chick. She was extremely sexy, and she was all woman, but she acted like a dude. And that's what it takes with girls. They've got to have that happy medium of being a woman and being sexy and beautiful, but being able to turn it on and kick somebody's ass, you know? So that's what makes the girls. But at the same time, when Rick thought of this idea, you know, my mom and me being with Scotty, I knew that Scotty wasn't going to be big on that. And that very first night, the storyline was I broke my neck in Columbia, South Carolina.
The wheelchair.
Yeah. So when we went back to Columbia for my very first time back in the ring, from having the broke neck, you know, my mom was going to be debuted there and come out and do the, you know, I was being a heel, and she was going to be like, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing? You're turning your back on your fans and all that. So we go to the ring, and I remember Scotty looking at my mom and saying, listen, lady, don't come up to me. Stay away from me. Don't touch me or anything. So I told Mom, I said, look, Mom, you got to stay away from Scotty, man. You got to, you know. So as the match, as our segment was getting closer, my mom was a real wild ass, and she's, you know, she's just a wide ass open person. She raised 3 boys, and she's just wide open. But I noticed I was losing her. Like I wasn't getting that Judy Bagwell I needed out of her backstage. And so when I was trying to get Dad to get it out of her, and she was just really scared and really stage fright and all that. So when she came out, she came out to the ring and everything, and she wasn't supposed to get in the ring. And I got out there, and I knew I was going to do something to kick her into gear, So I said, listen, lady, I said, the only reason you're able to eat is because of me. And here she come through the ropes. And I went, oh, shit. I said, oh, no. So here she come, bro. And she went to, if you ever watch that back, when she goes to Scotty almost breaks her wrist. Because she gets in Scotty's face, and Scotty grabs her hand and just almost breaks her wrist. She's like, and then she goes back to me and she grabs me by the ear, and I go right with it, and I remember she threw me to the back, and then she turned to the crowd and did the, her hands up, and the crowd went nuts, so she was made right there, man. It was over.
Any time in your life you ever thought that you would be on television with your national television with your mom doing what you love to do, that is fantastic.
I mean, if professional wrestling really kept statistics like NFL or the Major League Baseball, my mother and Rick Steiner would be the world tag team champions as we speak.
Yes, they are.
They are the only undefeated WCW tag team champions in history.
So that's really cool to me. That's really cool,
We're from Michigan, so we're big Steiner fans as well. Like we're not far from Rick and Scott.
Last year we took my dad to meet Scott. In fact, I do have a question from my father. Let me pull up the text message. Scott, how does he feel about Scott and Rick being in the Hall of Fame?
Oh man, I think that's great. It's Scotty and Rick, man. Let's just be honest. The Steiner brothers are one of the elite, world tag teams. I mean, they just
cut you off, the greatest tag team of all time, in my humble opinion.
I think. You can't put, the Legion of Doom or the Steiner brothers in a sentence without saying the other one. There's no way. So that's the two of the best, no matter what. And to me, the Steiner brothers edge them out because they were WCW more than they were the WWF. So that's why I like them more. But I also loved Joe, and I loved, Road Warrior Hawk and Animal. I loved them both. But still, the Steiner boys, I think, edged them out too, as well to me too. But yeah, I think it's fantastic. I do think it was a little scary for Bronson to bring his Uncle Scott out because
put him on live mic. We all know what that happens.
Scotty can cut loose pretty quick, and but he didn't. And I loved how he got emotional, and it is emotional, man. It's emotional that they're in the Hall of Fame, and it's a big deal, and they deserve it, and they're great. And I love them both, always have, and we've always had a special bond with each other. So I just thought that they really deserved it, and I think it's great that they're in the Hall of Fame.
Awesome. Ethan, go ahead.
Yeah. So with the On A Forklift, the wheelchair, the NWO in general, there's a willingness that I've noticed of you to, I don't want to say take yourself less seriously, but you took you were more free with yourself, but you took that very seriously. You were willing to do stuff where there's guys in the business that are like, yeah, there's no way I'm doing that. And I feel like there wasn't a lot that you turned down because you said, I can make this work. Is that the case?
It's absolutely the case. We would show up to a show, and it was all happening so fast. Keep in mind, even the writers of our show, when the show ended, when Monday Night Nitro ended, they started on next week. I mean, and literally until 5 p.m. the next Monday is when the board went up. I mean, Hulk Hogan down to, not down to, he's a star, but to Chavo Guerrero, or to a Marcus Bagwell. I mean, nobody knew what they were doing until 5 o'clock that Monday. You got 3 hours before showtime, and you ain't got no idea what you're doing. And then they put it on the board, what you're doing, but the finishes don't go out, so you've got no idea. You know kind of what you're doing, but you don't know the ending, you know?
Mhm.
So it was really, and that's what makes us professionals is we're able to, like Dancing with the Stars has 3 dress rehearsals before they go on live. 3 dress rehearsals. We talk about it and go out and perform it. That's a whole nother galaxy. And to be able to do that and to pull it off correctly and it be phenomenal is what made us so magical. And that's the catch behind it all. And but it just the business is just such a great business. I love it so much. But I just love that the competition of having to do what we would do by not knowing until 5 o'clock and then going out performing it. But what we would do is we would get to a building and we would say, what can we do that nobody would do? And we were in St. Louis one night and we started thinking and we'd knock it around some people and somebody would say something, an idea, and we'd like, nah, or somebody would say an idea, we'd go, yes. And I remember being in St. Louis, for example, and it was Mark McGuire just had broke the home run record.
Okay.
So right then we sent a guy for me to dress up like McGuire, and I was going to go out and take steroids on TV.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, that was that night. We thought of it that night. We sent for the wig. We sent for the jersey. Eric Bischoff let me and Scotty do anything we wanted because everything we did was good. And so we dressed up, and my NWO referee guy, that guy lived with me. His name was Mark Johnson.
Okay.
He went on to be that bald-headed referee for TNA.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Slick.
Yeah.
Slick Johnson.
Slick. Yeah.
Slick. Yeah.
So Slick was a friend of mine growing up, and at WCW, Eric Bischoff was. Mark Johnson, Slick was in my house living with me as a friend. I was divorced. I got divorced in '94 after my first wife, and moved in 5 of my best friends, and one of them was him. And then Eric Bischoff came to us, me and Scotty, one day, and Scotty knew Mark as well, Mark Johnson. And he's like, hey, he goes, I need an NWO ref. And me and Scotty were like, we've got him. Because Mark Johnson, he's so animated and he's really good and he's just funny as heck. And so he got hired, and then he was the guy that wheeled me out that day on the tricycle to the ring. That was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'll never forget it. And again, me and Scotty are eating catering during lunchtime, and Mark Johnson comes wheeling through with that tricycle. And we were like, wait a minute, we can use that and he can bring me out, and so we just pieced things together, and then it ended with us burning a Mark McGuire jersey in St. Louis.
That got some heat.
Oh, it was real heat, man, and again, that kind of stuff is what got us over, the wheelchair stuff. I mean, nobody was going to go make fun of wheelchairs, and we didn't make fun of people that were crippled. I was making fun of myself.
Hogan did once, but I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah. So they actually made us quit doing the wheelchair though.
Okay.
We did the wheelchair spot a couple of times, and we did the one where I come walling out and fell, and it was rolling, and Scotty's like, be buff, and I took my neck thing off, and
Where did the dance come from? I gotta ask that, because every time you come out, I'm like, yeah, it's the one wing. You got the arms going. I'm like, man, I feel like I'm gonna blow a knee out every single time you hit that.
Dude, that's something that is so special. I was in Baltimore, Maryland, and I was really, really figuring out who Buff Bagwell was. I mean, I was on it, man. And in the locker room, the boys loved it. I mean, when Buff Bagwell went out to the ring, it wasn't a cocky thing. It wasn't look at my great match. It was, look at Bagwell, how funny he is. This is great. So the curtain, man, all the boys were at the curtain, man. And it was a house show we were having in Baltimore. And I went out there, man, and I just cut loose. I was doing every skit, the push the ref, he push you back, take the bump. I was sitting in the front row drinking a beer with a guy, just being Buff Bagwell. And out of that match, because I knew all the boys were watching me, out of that match, I get to the back, And Sting goes, man, that's the best you've ever done, man. It was great. He goes, that crazy dance you did. And I go, what? He goes, you know, that crazy thing you did. I go, I don't know, man. What I do? He goes, oh my God, you gotta do it every time you go out. And I go, but I don't know what I did. So I had to find somebody. It was a house show. So I had to find somebody that recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to watch it back to imitate myself. So I find it, I look at it, and I practice what I did. And it was funny looking and funny acting. So I added that to, like, I'd throw an arm drag and I'd come up right into that dance, you know, and hit the pose, you know, and it just worked. It was a cocky, buff strut, you know, and it just worked at the time for my character. But yeah, that was created in Baltimore, Maryland at a house show.
That's it. That is wild to me. And that's you speaking on the comedic part of it. Everybody always thinks, you know, you got a comedic wrestler like an Orange Cassidy or like a guy like that. And you look at them and you go, oh, okay. Like most of them can, like everybody can go. If you got to that level of a thing, you can go. I think the difference with yourself is if you looked at him, you're like, that dude's a unit. He is just like, every time you would step into the ring, you look like a threat to somebody,
right?
Which is the point. But then you give just this masterful comedic performance, along with having a really good wrestling match on top of it. And it's like, okay, so he's got the whole thing. And I think that's what surprises me the most when you were just gone. And we're not going to talk about the Booker T match because it's just, I'm sure you've been asked about it. That's not.
It's bullshit, is what it
is. I mean, you know, exactly. I got to hit on it for a second. I mean, it's just.
Be my guest.
It's just it blows me away that our society, especially wrestling fans, are weak enough to watch that match back and tell me that I got fired for a bad match. Regardless of what the match happened, regardless of what was done in that match. A couple of things here. Number one, there wasn't one mistake in that match. There was not one slip. Not one duck when you weren't supposed to duck. Not one punch that missed. Every single thing was there. Nothing looked stupid. I'm not embarrassed about that match at all, but the society has been told this, so they believed that is the reason. But when Joe Montana goes out and has a bad game, do you fire him?
No.
So now do you say, hey, Joe, you know, kick out, bro, because that was a bad game. If it was a bad match, nobody at WWF told me.
Right.
They told me actually, I mean, it came out like this on the internet after that it was my mom and a bad match. Now, the catch of both those two is, you know, why wouldn't I be warned, hey, tell your mother not to call here anymore, if that was true.
Right.
And then I would solve the problem, or you get fired. Hey, Buff, that match was a little bit weak. Hey, tighten up or you're fired.
Right.
I think of Buff Bagwell after 11 years and 5 World Tag Team Championships with 5 different partners, I think would deserve that.
Yeah.
But I didn't get it.
I agree with that.
Ethan, let me say something here.
Yeah.
The whole thing about that match, which is bullshit to begin with, was that for fucking 7 years, all Vince McMahon did was tell you that WCW sucked. If you watched it, it was bad, and you're a bad person for watching it. So the first match that he puts out on this new Monday Nitro that he's throwing on Raw in whatever fucking city it was in.
Tacoma, Washington.
Tacoma, Washington. He's just like, hey, everyone, I know I talk shit for like 8 years, but like, here's a new thing we're going to do. And you were, in my opinion, and me and my dad have talked about this, you were a scapegoat. They had a bad idea and they needed to get rid of someone because of it. And because of that, we didn't get shit like Buff Bagwell versus Edge, Buff Bagwell versus Test. There was a whole slew of dream matches that I had for Buff Bagwell in WWF.
That's why
WWE. It was so hurtful to me that they didn't give me, I'll never forget the day they say they released me, because they never said the word fire to me. I walked into the room. Keep in mind, in Tacoma, Washington, me and Booker T knew that there was something bad happening. I had no idea that it was going to be me getting fired, but we knew something was up, because why would a multi-billion-dollar company put the first match of the invasion in Tacoma, Washington, 5,000 miles away, when in 7 days we were going to be in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
The next week was Atlanta, bro.
So you would have torn the house down
to put Booker T and Buff Bagwell in Atlanta and just set the place on fire, man. It would have been great. Instead, we got booed out of the building in Tacoma, and it was what it was, you know. But when I walked in to get released, as they called it, I'll never forget. I looked around and I knew something. I'd never been fired before because I've never had a job before. Mm-hmm. I wrestled my whole life, was my only job. So when I walked in, I knew it felt weird, and I was like, "Are y'all firing me?" And they were like, "No, we're releasing you." And I went, "What?" I raised my hand, and they're like, "No, you don't got to raise your hand, Mark." I go, "Well, I feel like I must." I said, "What's the difference in firing and releasing me?" And they had an answer. The answer was, if we release you, we can bring you back in 3 months. And if we fire you, we got to redo your contract. So when they came up with an answer and came up with it quick, that's when I truthfully knew that it was over. And I was like, man, start shaking hands, try not to cry, and get to your car as fast as you can because it's over. So I called my parents and I said, you know, y'all can go home. They were in the stands at Phillips Arena. And I said, they go, why? I go, because I'm home. And they were like, what? I go, yeah. So that was the end of it, bro. But I had a great career even afterwards in the independent world. I made a living. I'm very grateful for that. But it cost me millions of dollars, man, millions of bucks, and a wonderful ride. But you just can't look back on it like that. My fans were great. I had a great run regardless in NWO and WCW. I loved my career and would do it all over again a million times.
We're glad, but that's also why we know that any incarnation of the NWO past that, it's all a sham.
Yeah,
it's a sham when you don't have. You were one of the first, I think, 6 or 7 members of it.
7.
Sure, let's cut. I mean, because I know Ted DiBiase was technically there before you, but every week there was a new member of the NWO. But when you think about it from the WCW aspect, you have the Wolfpack, the Outsiders, the OG guys plus Hogan, and then right next to it, there's Buff Bagwell. Like, in my eyes, you are one of those guys. And then it's like, if you were to put up a picture of WCW, you're a guy that's got to be on that picture.
Yeah.
Because you embodied what that was. The stuff was crazy. If you go back and watch it, it's absolute bonkers what we were watching. But as kids, like to us, we were 10, 11 years old when it folded or when it got bought out. But we can go back now and we watch it and we get that same enjoyment. And to think that there's that option that, hey, man, Buff's still out there. He can do this stuff. Like,
yes,
that's the coolest thing to us. That's what we find fantastic. I do have something to ask about this.
Okay.
So my first interaction of finding out who Marcus Bagwell was you and Scotty Riggs tagging together. I think it was the episode that Scott Hall first showed up. You guys were earlier on the cards and there was some weird interaction of it. So I remember you from that. But I remember the Buff segment. When you had first come out during a Scotty Riggs match, I believe you're at the top of the ramp.
Yeah.
And you said, you don't get it. He's fat. I'm buff. Did you already know that you were going to go that way with the character? Or was that something that opened up right then, that's where you were going?
Why is that your great question? And I got a great answer, but why was that? Why is that your question?
Because I always heard, I got the buff, like it was a foreshadowing. It feels like looking back, it's a foreshadowing, but I know that there's some stuff that like, hey, people reacted to that. Maybe that's where I have to go. Because at that point, they were still calling you Marcus Alexander Bagwell on commentary. Right.
Yeah,
we hadn't met.
Buff wasn't a word yet, I don't think. You're right. That was in New Orleans, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. That's not, my timeline's really not 100% accurate, but that's what I remember that being, because I remember cutting across underneath the Superdome that night, and I went into one of those trenches and almost broke my leg. And it didn't. I mean, I thought by falling it broke, but it didn't hurt me. But it was one of those like areas where the stands were able to go back through the concrete. Mm-hmm. So it was like a little valley. And it was dark under there, and I was running late for the go position. So I ran across an area I wasn't supposed to, and my leg went straight in that thing, man. And I was up in like 10 seconds. So I got to the gate, so to answer your question, I had no idea what I was going to say. And Scotty Riggs was not fat is the weird part,
No,
but he wasn't as lean as I was, but he wasn't fat. And I wasn't buff shredded yet either. I was kind of, I looked good and Scotty looked good, but we wasn't by no means shredded yet. I hadn't figured that part out yet. And so you're exactly right. I was just trying to think of something that I could be a heel and be ugly to Scotty Riggs and me put myself over by saying he's fat and that ain't where it's at or whatever I said.
Yeah.
I probably rhymed something.
Somehow it's the oozing charisma.
And then coming home on a trip, I think it was in Seattle somewhere, and we did a house show somewhere out there, and we were coming home on a flight, and we were trying to figure out, and I knew it was time for me to come up with a name. I needed a name besides Marcus Alexander Bagwell. I needed a name. And we're on the flight. We're in first class and we're talking. All the guys are talking and we're drinking and partying and trying to think of something. And in the back corner of first class, we hear somebody go, "What about Buff?" And everybody just went, and we look back there. Nick Patrick is who named me. Nick Patrick is who named Buff Bagwell. And after he said that, there wasn't another suggestion because that was it. Buff Bagwell was born, bro.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And it was funny. You're not buff, and I'm the stuff.
It worked out great, and you really took it and ran with it. I think what I always looked at is I look back at that, and I think Scotty was facing I want to say Billy Kidman. So clearly somebody that's very small comparatively. And so it's like, okay, yeah, I guess he can kind of look like that. And you come out just, baby oiled up and just ready to go. Yeah. And that was what happened. I'm like, is that when it happened?
But to answer your question about the feedback, I threw that out there not having any idea what was going to happen. And you don't go over. I've never gone over a promo in my life. Action, go. I know who I'm talking to, and I'm off the cuff with it. And that's what makes great interviews. But I do remember it really upset Scotty. So again, it worked. What I threw out there worked. So you continue with what worked. So you're exactly right on your assumption. And that is, I threw it out there and it stuck. So I kept going with it.
And it worked out. The persona, the everything, the hats. How many of those hats were made? Is it just?
I've had probably 3. Like this one never saw Nitro.
Okay.
But I mean, I still got one left that I keep that's that's in not real good shape, but it was a Nitro hat. And but I've sold a couple over the years, and one got stolen from me. My red one was probably my favorite, and that one got stolen from me. So somebody's got that. I thought it had come up over the years because I lost it right out of the gate of the Independence. And so like early, mid 2003, 4, 5 area, I lost that hat in Mobile, Alabama, and I never saw it since.
Wow. Well, I got something I want to talk about with you because there was a movement. It was either 2021 or 2022, and it's something like outside the realm of wrestling, even though it involves wrestlers, and that was Pride Buff. The whole time it was the Kid Bandit and Nyla Rose. Like people were bad mouthing them. And you were one of the first people to come at the defense for Nyla Rose and Kid Bandit. And then it led into this whole thing where it was just like Buff is for the gays. It was like you were the new RuPaul of professional wrestling. It was Buff is for the gays. And I got to tell you, I fucking loved it. It was great. How did that all come to be?
How that all came to be was I had a guy that was helping me on my internet stuff. And his alias name was Michael Long, and it's not even his real name. And this guy was really with it. I thought he was a good friend of mine. He was homosexual, and I have no problem with homosexual. I really am. I'm all about the shirt he came out with was Buff is for everybody. And to me, I am. I mean, whatever anybody, I want people to be happy. I don't care what they are. I don't care what you do. As long as you're happy, I want you to be that person. So a lot of the stuff we talked about was true, but he ran with it a little more than I would have. And that's when people started going, wait a minute, that's not Buff Bagwell. I mean, Buff Bagwell wouldn't talk about this much. Okay, he may hit on it, he may say something about it. So he got a little too loose with my Twitter. And at the same time, keep in mind, I'm getting close to going to rehab here. So I had checked out a little more than I wanted and was not paying attention to it. I didn't really know how powerful the Twitter stuff was and all that. But Nyla Rose is a personal friend of mine, and so's Kid. But at the same time, and I totally support them and did at the time. And again, we threw it out there and it stuck. So when it stuck, we voiced our opinion on how we felt. And when people really responded to it, it went viral. So of course we shared it more, but he stayed on it way too long. And it wasn't that it didn't need to be stayed upon. It just was something that I wouldn't have harped on, and he just harped on it, you know? And so when it was time to maybe move on from the gay, the LBGT, you know, XYZ, that community, when it came to that, it was time to move on. And I shared my opinion about it, and I thought it was great. I wore the shirt on GCW, their pay-per-view, the Game Changer. I wore, you know, Buffets for everybody. And it was cool, but it was just, it was a time that it was working. And that was when a lot of the wrestling community was also homosexual. There was a few wrestlers that were really getting over, you know, so that had not happened with pro wrestling. So I think it was cool that somebody that was a name like Buff Bagwell to stand up and say something that everybody else was kind of scared to say. And I wasn't scared to say it because I always tell it like it is. I'm always an open book. So it just, it meant a lot to me to be able to speak for them and to stand out for them. And I just thought it was great to be able to voice an opinion toward that community and be heard.
I think that's fantastic. And it really, and I'm sure that there are wrestlers in the business that have latched onto that and, you know, really accept and appreciate that more than they can probably ever, you know, say.
Absolutely.
Which, speaking of that, the recreations, everything like that, we would be remiss if we didn't ask you about Mr. Bagwell's neighborhood.
Yeah, man, that's been a lot of fun. Well, we're shooting a show. We've shot a show called Change or Die with Diamond Dallas Page. A guy named Steve Yu, which is, if you ever watched the Shark Tank episode with Dallas in it, there's an Asian guy and with Dallas. His name's Steve Yu. He is the president of Dallas's company at the Yoga Performance Center.
Okay.
And so he's kind of the Yoda. He's the Yoda behind the curtain of Dallas. So he really is the brains, the ideas, everything behind it. He's one of my best friends. He's one of Dallas's. He's probably Dallas's best friend. He's one of mine as well, and he's just a great, great guy. But he's the one that really is, behind the Mr. Bagwell thing. He's really big in production, and he did a lot of stuff for AEW production for them, and that's his forte is behind the camera. And so during shooting Change or Die, it came one of the challenges were juggling. And when you watch the show when it comes out, if you ever watch it, it's a great, great show. And it shows me juggling as Mr. Bagwell. And where it came from is, we were talking about Michael Long a minute ago. He had a lot of my stuff that I needed back, and he wasn't giving it to me. So I'm on the phone and I'm talking to him, and Steve Yu tape records everything. He records everything in case of this kind of stuff. And so I got the phone there and he's recording me, and I go, hey, I need you to get my stuff to me, bro. I'm trying to be nice, but I'm really kind of behind my voice cussing him out because I want it back. And I hang the phone up, I think. And can I cuss on this podcast?
Yeah. We don't give a fuck.
Yeah, there you go. So I hang up and I go, you cock-sucking motherfucker. and the phone's not hung up. The guy next to me name's Taylor, he's on the Change or Die show too. He says, Buff, it's not hung up. And when I look back, the phone's not hung up. And keep in mind, you can't go, oh, God, let me hang it up. You've already said it. So I just lean down on the phone and I go, you cock-sucking motherfucker. I just said it twice, And so I go on as Mr. Bagwell and I go, before you go on a tirade and dog cuss somebody on the telephone, make sure the phone's hung up. And they showed that clip of that. That was Michael Long I was cussing. So that's where it was kind of born. And then we just kind of were playing around about it. But, man, it took off. People really took interest in it. So that's something you're going to see a lot more of in the future.
That's awesome. I'm going to tell my daughter that you're Mr. Rogers. I'm not going to see Mr. Rogers. It's only Mr. Bagwell in this house.
Yes. I love it.
What's up, Clint?
I forgot to ask the most important question we ask every guest that comes on this show.
Food question.
Yeah. Buff, you're on the road a lot, especially when you were wrestling. What was your favorite fast food franchise when you were on the road?
Man, my diet for years and still is like this. My diet is 6 days a week. I eat as low of carbs as you possibly can. I mean, like, I count carbs like unbelievable. Just there's no way to get 0 carbs in a day. There's no way. I mean, if you suck on a lollipop, that's got 15 grams of carbs in it. Carbs is sugar. Sugar is carbs, and sugar and fats. Sugar and carbs turn to fat. So when you saw me as Buff Bagwell, shredded and lean and ripped, what I did on a consecutive basis was I would not eat as close to 0 amount of carbs all week long. And then one day a week, you do what's called a cheat day. And that's carb loading. You carb load that day. You just, it's Dairy Queen, it's bread, it's everything carb-wise you can get in. It's most fattening pancakes, potatoes, rice, breads, cereals, anything you want to eat, you eat it all day long. And the very next day, you go straight back to 0 carbs. And that diet is what made Buff Bagwell. I had it so dialed in, man, that Saturday, Sunday, you do your cheat meal. And then for Monday Night Nitro, bro, sometimes I missed, sometimes I was right on the money, but I was always in the wheelhouse of looking really good. But sometimes I'd wake up Tuesday morning and be just shredded where I just missed it. And then sometimes I'd wake up Monday morning and be like, all right, So it was a hit or miss thing. And like bodybuilding shows, every bodybuilder has missed that morning pose in by 5 minutes sometimes. It really is that tricky. And they do that 3 times a year. We were doing that 104 times a year. 116 to be exact. 116 times a year is 52 Nitros, 52 Thunders, and 12 pay-per-views. That's 116 times a year compared to 3 or 4 bodybuilding shows that I had to be a pro bodybuilder. That's tough to do. On the road, go. So my favorite fast food was not the way to go. But if it on my cheat day, it would probably be, McDonald's. But you really get creative when you've gone carb free for 6 days. You get extremely creative on what your cheat day is. Sometimes it's Dairy Queen, sometimes it's pizza, sometimes it's McDonald's, sometimes it's pancakes. You never know. But usually it's, you get very creative with it. So I never had a fast food favorite because we couldn't do it a lot. But I do like Dairy Queen for my cheat days.
Hell yeah, Dairy Queen's great.
What's up?
No, go ahead,
Clint. I was just going to say, so you very early on, once again, you started in WCW at 19, 20 years old. And I've heard stories about how you got into the business, maybe some help from Missy Hyatt. I'm not 100% certain on if that stuff's true.
Yes.
But finding your character, we've talked about, the American Males, the Buff Bagwell character. Was there anything that you always wanted to do, but didn't get the opportunity to, like, try out character wise, or was that really kind of afforded to you with the Buff character?
That's a good question. how it broke down, how it came down to me was when I went to WCW, I was working for a company, and you guys may be too young to know this, but do y'all know anything about me being the handsome stranger?
Vaguely.
Okay. Well,
Vaguely on
I
some
was
old stuff.
when y'all get off the phone, y'all can look it up. It's really cool. I was a 19, old 19 or a very young 20, and I was in a company called GCW, Global Championship Wrestling, and I wore a Long Ranger mask. And man, I was in incredible shape for a 20-year-old kid, man.
That was a Bill Eadie thing, wasn't it?
Very good. Bill Eadie. Bill Eadie is who thought of the handsome stranger. So here's big, bad, tough Bill Eadie that comes up with a character that wears a mask and hands roses out.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was humiliated by it. But the bosses told me to do it, and I did it. And now, fast forward, I get told by people all the time how great that gimmick was. And I'm like, what? I said, the mask was a piece of napkin over my face, Anybody could have ripped it off, So a lot of boys thought it was a rib. Like, why would you cover up the face of one of the best looking dudes in wrestling? Why are we covering his face up,
Right.
But I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was really neat, but it was a hard type gimmick to get over because it just, I was very green, and I learned a lot as that character though. So with that said, I had short tights because my legs were real big, and all wrestlers' legs are big at first. And then you start traveling and stuff, man, those legs get, worse and worse to train. And to be athletic all the time, it's kind of hard to have your legs sore all the time. But so legs are usually the first thing to go with bodybuilders that turn wrestling. But I really, I just always knew no matter what. I was all county, all state in high school at football and baseball, but I never quit working out. I never gave up working out. I wanted to look. It switched from being big to just looking good. But for years it was, I'm going to be bigger. I want to be bigger because I was really a skinny kid. And it turned from being big to being just, as long as I looked really good, to being, let's be shredded,
Mm-hmm.
And so I always wanted to look good though. And by wanting to look good, it kind of took care of itself with the business. But, I wanted to be somebody else as Marcus Alexander Bagwell. So I went from the handsome stranger to WCW, and Dusty Rhodes wanted to keep my real name. And I said, Dusty, no, man, I want a gimmick. I want a character,
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, you're going to be the rookie of the year. You're going to be your real name. And at that time, man, my best friend was Johnny B. Bad. Here's a white guy playing a black guy like Little Richard that,
Mm-hmm.
was a black piano guy that was real flamboyant with guns and lipstick and all these crazy outfits. And here I am as Marcus Alexander Bagwell. So, I really was unhappy about it. Of course, my family and friends thought it was great, but I didn't. So when I was able to switch to Buff Bagwell, that was really a big deal. But WCW didn't want to do it. If you notice, they never dropped my name. Like when The Rock was The Rock, it was never Dwayne The Rock Johnson when he wrestled. It was just The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
It was Stone Cold. Well, it should have been just Buff, but it was always Marcus Buff Bagwell. Turner did not want to lose my name. And my parents loved it, but I really was trying to push for just, Buff Bagwell,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But so it fell into place, but it was something that I just kind of accidentally created. And with the help of Nick Patrick thinking of it, it just seemed to work.
Okay.
Awesome. That is, yeah. You know what, man? It's
Hold on
just
1 second.
fantastic.
I'm back.
Okay.
My battery's getting low.
Oh, you're
yeah,
okay.
no problem.
I personally had one more question for you.
Okay.
Is there a wrestler today, like wrestling today, that you've never wrestled, that if you got the opportunity to, who would you wrestle?
Let's see. Man, I've wrestled a lot of guys. It's all that, there's no doubt about it. I'd say you got to realize I've had several matches with Stone Cold,
Mm-hmm.
and that was incredible. Stunning Steve Austin was one of the best,
Mm-hmm.
And but it would have to be The Rock.
That was a big missed opportunity. You both were so fucking Hollywood, like at the time too.
Yeah.
That could have main evented a pay-per-view.
Yeah, that would have been a big deal, man. And it could have been and should have been, but it wasn't. But it could have been for sure.
I've said for years that they fucking missed out on the invasion storyline by not having you in it.
I know.
Because there were, like, you were one of the WCW people that was like, yes, you can buy out my contract. I will come wrestle for you. There was no one else.
I got one better than that. Mm-hmm. I gave him my money. Instead of having him pay me, I said, Vince, you ain't got to pay me another dime. I go, keep it. Bro, I'm 30 years old. I'm Buff Bagwell. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make millions. I'm going to make millions on accident, bro. Mm-hmm. So take this 60, 80, 100 grand, whatever it is on my contract left, take it and get rid of it. And I'll go under contract right now. Mm-hmm. My first contract went from 900 grand a year to 175,000 a year. I went broke signing my first contract. I had to sell my house, sell my cars, sell my motorcycles. And then I was rich again. I mean, I was making 175 grand, but I lost my home, my cars, my motorcycles, everything. But now I know within a shadow of a doubt, within 2 years, I'm going to be making the millions again. I know I am. And little did I know, I was going to be fired in 2 weeks. So, you know, but then again, it is what it is. But at the same time, when I got fired, I can't help but ask. I asked Vince, I go, Vince, can I get that 80 grand back?
Help a brother out,
man. If you're not going to keep me, can I get my 80 back?
Right.
That 80 was on the contention you were keeping me.
Yeah, that's what that's the idea of it, you know. And even my agent at the time, Brad Small, which is Dallas Page's agent as well. Even he told me, he's like, man, that is the best idea I've ever heard. Because I had a lot of heat, not heat that was real, but internet heat. There was the heat of Bagwell's hard to get along with. He's not a nice guy. Exactly how I am on your podcast right here is exactly how I am all the time. But the heat happens and things were said and things were. So the WWF guys, they only knew what the stories they heard. So they didn't know if I was legit or not. So they really did, was worried about me having the heat. But at the same time, I knew what kind of guy I was, but I had to get that heat off of me. So I said, take the money and let me join up to let you know I'm ready to go. I'm full. I'm all in, brother. And I came all in. I went to school like they asked me to. I did everything I was supposed to do. And me and Shane Helms had that little fight down there. But I'm the one that got hurt. I mean, I slapped him, but he sneak punched me with a water bottle in the head that was frozen and gave me 25 staples in the head. I had staples in my head the night I wrestled Booker T. Again, y'all wasn't told that part of the story.
Right.
No, we're learning a lot right now.
Nobody knew I had a concussion in that first match.
And what's crazy is the mantra has completely changed, because if you go online and you type Buff Bagwell, there's nothing but positive press.
Yes.
It's insane how the infancy of the internet has, and then now where people are able to tell their side of the story, able to speak out, able to put their words into it instead of somebody, oh yeah, well, he said, she said. And it's crazy to me that they would look at that as somebody like you. And with all due respect to Scott Steiner, we know there's like so many things where people are like, oh, well, he's allegedly really hard to work with. Well, if he's hard to work with and Buff's hard to work with, then why was only one of them kept around? And those two got along so well. And
how did I survive 5 bosses at WCW, bro?
Exactly.
5 bosses I survived at WCW. And I get hit with every bullet in the world with McMahon.
Right. I have 2 questions. One's a very small one, and then we'll let you plug and get your stuff out of here. One of them, you said you sold your motorcycles. Did you ever buy any of them back? What's your favorite one?
No, I did buy. My dream was to buy the one back that I really loved. It was my favorite, but I found one I loved more. It was a chopper. It was it's called a Fat Daddy Chopper Borgette.
Okay.
And it was a 2007 Fat Daddy Chopper Borgette. And it was the chopper with the big 300 on the back, man. And if you see my Twitter stuff, I'm sure there's a picture of it in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Really, really off the chain chopper, man. But so I did buy that during the last years, but I sold it right before COVID because I had my car wreck and I knew I was going to be down for a while, and COVID was out. I needed the money, so I sold that chopper again. But then, but I loved it, and I'll have another bike as well before it's over. But that was one of my favorites.
I'm one of the I have a Dyna, so I get it.
There you go.
The other thing is, so well, I guess this is going to follow into two things. You were part of just a massive stable with the NWO, second best selling shirt of all time wrestling wise, and heads and tails above any other stable. Like that is the greatest stable of all time. But you had a couple of other tag team, and one of them has a favorite name of mine. It's Vicious and Delicious. It was yourself and Scotty Norton.
Yes.
Out of everybody that you tagged with, was there anybody that you never got to tag with that you wanted to? Somebody that you thought, hey, if I hooked up with this guy, we would be, this stuff would be money. Not that anything that you did wasn't,
right.
But
no, really, you just kind of answered the question yourself. It was the only one I didn't get to do that was no doubt on paper was going to be the best tag team in the world. And like Steiner Brotherish and Legion of Doom brother. I mean, like that kind of popularity, I think, would have been Vicious and Delicious. But even as much as you know about it, I'm going to tell you something you're probably not even going to believe. I'm almost positive that me and Scott only had a couple of matches, because one of our first matches as the NWO best tag team, which was me and Scott Norton, Vicious and Delicious, I broke my neck and was out 10 months. So when I broke my neck, me and Scott Norton, me and Norton was in a match together as Vicious and Delicious. And we were going over that match over Luger and Steiner. And me and Norton in Japan beat Luger and Steiner beat Luger and Nash. No, not Luger and Nash. Luger and the Giant. Me and Norton beat Luger and the Giant in Japan to the point where I was blown away. But we got really over in Japan during that run. And we came back as Vicious and Delicious, and we were over still, and then I broke my neck. And then when I came back in 3 months to television, Scott Norton was in Japan again, and so they put me with Steiner, and there that went.
He was huge, and Scott Norton was massive in Japan. It was one of those. It was Masahiro was in the was it Japan new NWO. Anyway, I'm rambling on that stuff.
Chono and the Great Muda.
Yeah,
they had their own NWO over there too. See, so that's why Jeff Farmer was the NWO Sting and all that.
Oh yeah, and you had so anybody that's got anything about Bullet Club, no offense, Clint, I know you've got a Bullet Club hoodie on. This is where it's at.
It's okay. All I'm going to say is I know every member of NWO by heart because I had to memorize every name for a fucking quiz show that we did where I had everyone list every member of the NWO. Hey, Ethan, when did you go out?
Listen, I don't want to talk about it.
You know
whose name I did get? The man below us.
Yes, Buff Bagwell.
That's the important one.
Buff, we really appreciate you. We really appreciate you joining us.
Hey, man, thank y'all so much.
This is really like childhood dream come true. I really mean it. My dad's going to geek when he sees this.
Cool.
Of course, before we go, what does the future hold for Buff? Is there anything that you would like to plug? The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, well, first of all, man, I want to say that thank you guys so much for letting me go on here and just tell everybody where Marcus Bagwell is at and what I'm doing. And what I'm doing right now, man, is I'm getting my feet back underneath me. It's, it's 2023 is going to be a really good year for me. We're at the very beginning of it. My world right now is covered with recovery and sobriety. And that's where I'm leaning all my stuff toward. But of course, I'm still Buff Bagwell. So I'm doing signings and appearances. And I got Pillow Buddies coming out this year. I'll be at WrestleMania. The best way to keep in touch with Marcus Buff Bagwell is go to marcusbuffbagwell.com. That'll take you to all my platforms. It'll take you to my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook. It takes you everywhere I'm at. It also shows you where I'm at, what I'm doing. And that'll be a really good way to follow everything I do. Just remember marcusbuffbagwell.com. And again, man, I appreciate everybody, all the fans that have stuck with me out there and give me a chance to come back and do something with my life again. If I just do half as much as I did this first go around, I'll be very impactful. And I'm looking to do maybe even more than I did last. So I'm very excited, man, and thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
greatly appreciate it. And if you're ever in the tri-state area, hell, if you're, I don't know, we'll come down and
Ohio,
see you.
I'll
We'll
drive
find
to
out.
Ohio to see you.
So thank you
I
again,
love it.
Buff. We hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you guys.
And
Y'all stay in touch with me now.
we
We will. You
will
stay
do that,
strong out
sir.
there, okay?
And we'll sign
Thanks,
off
guys.
with our thing. And as always, this has been Clint and Ethan on A Forklift. We love you, Judy.
We love you, Judy. Take care.
I love her too.